life's sufferings make us become even more cognizant of the many blessings that God has given us? Or will they blind us from experiencing the blessings that God still showers on us? What does your experience tell you about that?
Depends on the
Will life's suffering enable you to still see, and all the more seeing the sovereignty of God and the generosity of God? Or will that, to some extent, kind of blind us from realizing that, after all, we still continue to receive blessings from above?
Sometimes it's blinding,
It blinds
and you
us.
have to be reminded that
That's right.
you have to be reminded, or somebody has to like go like and remind you your blessing. Just waking up this morning is a blessing, because some people didn't wake up this morning at all. So,
sometimes they paralyze us. They make us feel so helpless and hopeless, and they kind of, yes, they make us feel kind of paralyzed. So, at this point, what are you most thankful for? Instead of responding in word, I invite each one of us to draw in response to this.
great on.
And this is part of our meditation this morning. Get one. Get one. What are you thankful for? So I noticed that in the last several weeks, even in our church service, it seems like the emphasis on life's problems and struggles, were of top in our list in terms of discussion and conversation. So let's also see and reflect on the other reality of life. So we have crayons here. What are you thankful for? Draw your response. Oh, there you go.
Draw it.
Draw it.
Not words?
No words this time.
How many minutes do we have?
Just a couple of minutes.
And this is on video, y'all.
Oh, okay.
Dark purple? I don't know.
What are we grateful
I'm just going to use one color.
What are you grateful for? What are you thankful for? What?
No words.
No words. In the midst of life's challenges and difficulties, so let's worship God through our right brain. There was a story of, no, we'll come to that, we'll come to that. There was a story of a fourth grade who was extremely thankful for her teacher, for what the teacher has done to her, and how much her teacher really inspired her to be the best that she could be. So before their Christmas break, this fourth grader just wanted to give her teacher something as a tangible expression of her sense of gratefulness. She and her family, they don't have money to buy something. And so, because they lived in a coastal village, one morning she decided to just walk around the coast to the beach, and hoping she could find the best shell that she could to give to her teacher. And so she walked and walked and walked for more than an hour, and finally she found the kind of shell that she wanted to give to her teacher. So Christmas holiday came, and she approached her teacher and said, "Teacher, I have something very special to give to you." And then when the teacher opened the box, she found the shell. And the teacher asked, "This is such a beautiful shell. Where did you find this?" And then the pupil said, "I walked for miles and miles until I found this shell." And then the teacher said, "You shouldn't have walked that far. You could have just gone through a store and maybe just buy one shell." And then the pupil said, "But teacher, the walk is part of the gift."
Yeah.
So maybe some of us might have heard of that story. It's not just the shell per se, but the time she spent in looking for that shell, the number, the miles, the distance that she traversed to find that shell is part of the gift.
Mm-hmm.
Our drawing and our expression, what we are doing right now, is part of our meditation as well. And before we try to make sense of this, let us try to first reflect on our reading, very briefly. There are two things that I like about the book of Psalms. And these are what fascinate me to make this a part of my daily faith journey. The first is the fact that Psalms convey the people's faith in God and help them define and understand their encounter with God. If you notice, Psalms are actually articulations, expressions of people's encounter with God and how they experience God in their daily lives, whether in bad times or in good times, whether during blessed moments or in the most difficult times. If you notice, there are even chapters in the book of Psalms that are just extremely raw in terms of conveying, what the psalmist really feel. We even have what we call imprecatory psalms, which just really shows, the psalmist very raw emotions and feelings towards his or her reality. And such articulations have become part of their faith. Hence, Psalms became an articulation of people's faith, whether it be a psalm of lament, or a royal psalm, or a praise or thanksgiving psalm, and whether it be personal or communal psalm. The second thing that I personally appreciate about the Psalms is because Psalms are actual pilgrimage songs or prayers of Israel as a people, which later became tools for worship in the later part of Israel's history as recorded in the Bible. In other words, Psalms are products of the people's journey with God, which truly reflect their personal and communal belief in God and their relationship with God, and how they experience God in their individual and communal lives. In fact, the theology of Psalms is very raw, very natural. That's why many people can easily relate, identify themselves with the different passages in the book of Psalms, because of their spontaneity, because of their naturalness. Very personal indeed. Our reading this morning in Psalm 146 is a praise and thanksgiving psalm. And sometimes we need to be reminded, like what Myra has said, sometimes we need to be reminded of this, especially in the midst or against the backdrop of so much pain and suffering and problems and difficulties and challenges, not just on the personal level, but more so in the kind of community where we live in. There's so much chaos. All TV news channels and media, all the news we hear every day is so depressing, so stressful, that sometimes our souls may long and yearn for that kind of a news that inspires us, the kind of a news that makes us continue to envision a future reality. Certainly, our reading this morning starts with the words of praise and adoration. Praise the Lord, O my soul. I will praise the Lord all my life. I will sing praise to my God as long as I live. Then the psalmist began naming the reason for his or her thanksgiving, which is actually an affirmation of God's mighty deeds. The Lord remains faithful forever. The Lord upholds the cause of the oppressed and gives food to the hungry. The Lord sets prisoners free and gives sight to the blind. The Lord lifts up those who are bowed down and loves the righteous. And perhaps, given all the prayers of concerns that we were just sharing yesterday, maybe we could look at it from the perspective of, and the Lord sustains the people every day, despite their predicament, despite their pains, their illnesses. And the Lord continues to provide them with resilience. And the Lord continues to uphold them. In this passage, one thing was sure, and that is Psalm 146 is the psalmist's response on behalf of the people of Israel to God's sovereignty and steadfast love. Psalm 146 is offered in the life amid sorrow, pain, and struggle. It declares that although there are sorrows in the world, nevertheless, I will praise and thank God anyway. So, what are you thankful for? Share with us your drawing, and maybe with a word or two or a statement or two. And then after that, I invite you to come up here and then post your expression of praise and thanksgiving to God. I will start. I'm grateful just for the gift of life and to be alive every day. I invite you to come up here. So, yes, Emily, what are you grateful for?
Grateful for nature. And I drew one of my favorite scenes, which is Shenandoah National Park.
Wow. Okay.
You got me next.
Okay.
So mine tells a story. So like, I had a job, and then I'd say, oh, I lost my money. I didn't have no time. And now I have time. So I hang out with the dogs, and I do my music. I get to sleep in. I hang out with my friends. I go travel, and I get money. The money that I lost, came back.
I'm grateful for the world and its people on all the continents, and the mythology of the support of the earth is a spiritual reality of God's caring and God's support for the whole world. We've got the guy on the back of the turtle to be honored.
The whole earth.
Oh, turtle.
The whole earth.
Oh, well.
You done wrong?
Diane.
Mine's along the lines of Myron's with just 6 fingers. I'm grateful for my family, my home, that I have a home, and I have a job, and I didn't know how to do health. So, How do you draw health?
Okay, I'm thinking about the medical thing.
Yeah.
Mine also tells a story. This is a symbol of that story, which is my mom singing lullabies to me. But it's a symbol actually, and this is rainbow music. And it's actually a symbol of forgiveness and healing through the generations, because it was through me telling Jason as an elementary school kid what a wonderful gift she gave me through her storytelling and reading me nighttime stories and singing to me lullabies, that she was able to talk about what she didn't do right and say that in front of my son, which is something I never expected. It was a totally unexpected gift. After I had already forgiven her for those things, but to have her be able to say it out loud meant that she could forgive herself and say it out loud. And so many times, and so many people suffer from not being able to let go or forgive. And I'm particularly aware of the pain that that causes in life and relationships, and have been very close to a number of people who are not able to do that, and I'm just incredibly grateful for my mom's gift to me, and for being able to let go and forgive.
Wow, thank you, thank you. Every expression of thanksgiving in there, that the essence of life is also present, which makes me actually also reflect on one dimension of Thanksgiving, and that is Thanksgiving is also thanks living, I think. It manifests, it shows in all of those things. Our act of Thanksgiving is very much a part of who we are. And so praising and thanking God in light of what we are seeing here actually go beyond emotions of exultation and delight, shouting, singing, and dancing. Well, these are concrete manifestations of an act of praise and thanksgiving, yet genuine praise and thanksgiving also invite and call for the total submission and dedication of ourselves, of our lives, to the will and desire of God. They call for the giving back to God the gift of ourselves, by perhaps promising and fulfilling our vows to serve God with all our hearts, with all our minds, with all our strength, and with all our souls. This is, I think, the challenge for all of us, and that is to make our lives constantly an expression of praise and thanksgiving to God. Not only during special occasions, but every single day in our lives. To end, let me say that praise and thanksgiving, especially in the midst of pain, challenges, suffering, in my practice in trauma healing, I always ask people the question, in the midst of so much destruction and trauma, can we still see the beauty of life? Instead of finding beauty in the garden of flowers, finding beauty in the orderliness of nature, can we still find beauty even in the midst of the ashes? Praise and thanksgiving is all that we can give back to God for what God has done in our lives, like the psalmist in our reading. Since we were born and all throughout our adult life, I think and I would like to believe that God has always been there for us never abandoning us, although we may feel that God may have abandoned us at one point or another. Although we may feel that God ignores us given life circumstances. But personally, my theology suggests that God is always there. And if we are suffering, maybe God is also suffering with us. If we feel abandoned, maybe God also feels being abandoned. God has been there every day in our lives. God has always been our provider and supplier with all our daily needs. Therefore, thanking and praising God for what God has done in our lives is never an obligation, nor is it a duty, but rather a humble response to what God has done for us. This journey is what we call life. Amen.
Amen.
Somebody get a picture of this?